Good evening. It's a lovely day. A lovely day. April 11th. I'm recording actually before 7 p.m. Just had to do a few things this evening. So I'm doing it now and we'll go live, record it at 7 p.m. And it's the Saturday after Easter, unless you're celebrating Orthodox Easter, which will be tomorrow. I hope if you celebrate, I hope you had a wonderful and will be having a wonderful Easter. Okay. And for all the other religions out there, I think Passover is over now, and I forgot the other one if it's still going on. But anyway, if whoever's celebrating a holiday, or if you're not celebrating a holiday, I hope you are all well. Okay. I'm Chris Gargiulo of Real Estate with Mr. G. I run a blog, which is realestatewithmrg.blog. Let me see if I have the caption for that. Well, I'm going to show this down here. We're going to actually look at this later, but it's realestatewithmrg.blog. And later on, when we talk about the springtime buyer and seller guides, that's the link that you could download those guides for free. But we'll talk more about that later. And I have my podcast. Now, my mission, my goal, my theme, my statement, mission statement, is that I am educating the buyer and the seller with current trends that are happening within the real estate market. We'll talk about, and it'll involve the economy as well. If the economy is staggish, if interest rates are too high, there'll be a podcast on how to deal with the high interest rates. We'll do a podcast on adjustable rate mortgages. That's very important. That's a big one right now. But I'm going to help you the best way I can to get you to buy that house, to successfully purchase that house, and or sell your present home. Okay, because this might be a two-way situation where you're also going to sell a home before you move in. If you're not a first-time home buyer, you'll have a home that you may have to sell first before you even proceed with the next purchase. Some people are fortunate enough if maybe their house is paid off or they have a very small mortgage, but they could still be approved with having that existing mortgage on file, still active, and they could still buy another home. They have enough income coming in that they could support both mortgages. They may not want to, of course, they want to sell the other home, but in case that other home hasn't sold yet, it's very possible they could still purchase. Sometimes they have to wait before that until the present home sells, because they have to free up that credit line so they could go now with a brand new mortgage. But nonetheless, I could help you in both situations. And how do I help you? I work for a company called RealtyConnect.com. And basically, we have a network of top producing buyers and sellers throughout the nation, throughout the 50 states. So basically, I'm doing marketing for them. I still have in fact, I just had to finish my continuing education. I still have my broker's license, but I'm in my role with Realty Connect. I am a licensed referral specialist. And I could help you if you reply to my podcast, to my blogs, to my social media. You're looking for a home, you're selling a home. I could still aid you, give you advice, but I'm going to then connect you, or you go to my website. You could use realestatewithmrg.us, and you enter your information, and you'll be introduced to up to 3 high producing agents within that locale that you're either buying or selling, or both. All right. And there's no additional charge for the service. My commission is coming out of their commission with whichever agent you're using. Either if you're using a buyer's agent, a listing agent, or both, my commission comes out, or my referral fee comes out of that commission. So there's not an extra charge for using my service. So you're basically getting 2 to 3 agents for one. If you are a seller, you are paying for through your commission, but it's not through your listing agreement. But it's not an extra fee. If you decide to give the listing firm 3%, you're not being charged 3.5% or 4% because I'm part of that transaction. No, it comes out of that listing fee or the buyer agent's fee. Okay? There's been changes within the real estate market, whereas in some situations, the buyer is now paying for their representation. It used to be if the seller lists their home for 6%, for example, it doesn't have to be 6%. It's been in the past where 3% goes to that listing firm and 3% goes to the buyer's agent. But a couple of years ago, there was a lot of discussion over that and debate and civil lawsuits saying why the seller says, why do I have to pay for the buyer's representation? And so the agreements have changed. Now, the seller could still do that. They don't have to do that. All right. Now, with a lot of the buyer's agents or the listing agents today, will say that the house will sell faster if the buyer doesn't have to pay their agent fee. And it depends. It's a case-by-case scenario. If the seller has to sell it fast and they have enough money or proceeds coming from the sale that it covers the commissions, and plus they make a little profit, it would be a good idea, but it doesn't have to be that way. Okay? Now the buyer's agent has to negotiate with their client on what they will be paid for the transaction, for 1 to up to 3%. Okay? So it's a different market right now. And as much as agents will say, it's the same old market, it's not the same old market. All right? And that's a whole podcast in it by itself. What are the pluses and negatives about this new ruling that the seller does not have to pay the buyer agent's commission. They could say, I'm just paying for my own. I'm paying for my representation. I'm paying for the listing firm and their agent. But why should I pay for the buyer's agent? Okay. And again, that's a whole other show. All right. Well, today we're just dealing with, before we go to our topic question, and since I discussed about what Realty Connect is really about, I did this little video on how this works. And that's something I created on my own. And I like it. I'll tell you why I like it. I mean, it shows all of America, from the Midwest to the prairies to the farming, and then you'll see New York, and so I could help you anywhere within the United States of America. All right, and you could just go to my website, and it shows right here, and enter your information, and we could start helping you immediately. All right. And just to reiterate, these agents will show you homes and or list your homes and they'll do a listing. But I could still consult you. You could touch base with me. I could give you advice, whatever. Okay? Okay. So with that in mind, what is our topic question for today?
Hey, Mr. G. Hope you are doing well this beautiful Saturday morning. I listed my house at the beginning of the year, and it is still on the market. Do you think I should rent the house for a while? With your infinite and valuable knowledge of the real estate industry, can you advise on how to make this decision? I watch your video podcasts all the time with my husband, children, and yes, also grandchildren. Keep it going strong throughout the year.
All right. Thank you so much for that question. And I appreciate that you and your children and your grandchildren watch my video podcast. I truly appreciate that. And the market has changed since COVID, and houses are now staying longer on the market than they were a few years ago. And it's very possible your house has been on the market for 3 or 4 months, and there's no contracts on it. So you might start itching and saying, "Well, I could use the income. Should I start renting it in the meantime?" And let's get ready to set this up here. This is the PDF. This was on my blog this week. Your house hasn't sold yet. Should you rent it instead? And that is a very good question, isn't it? All right, so let's take a look at this. So your house has been sitting on the market longer than you expected. It's getting frustrating. You're getting upset. While it sounds like a simple plan or a backup plan, becoming an accidental landlord is actually a much bigger decision than most people realize. That's when someone planned to sell, didn't get the price or attraction they hoped for, and decided to rent the house instead. So that's our accidental landlord. So according to Zillow, and I'm reading what's in the highlight area here, about 2/3 of homes available for rent were previously listed for sale. That may not sound like a lot, but it's actually the highest share in almost 6 years. So before you go on this route, you have to ask yourself these 3 questions first. And would your house or your house actually work as a rental? So the right situation for your situation is going to depend on your location, your home's condition, and what the rental market looks like in the area. Think about one. If you're moving away, do you have a plan for how to handle ongoing maintenance and repairs from afar? Okay, that's a good question. You're not going to be right there. If you're going maybe across country, you're on the East Coast, you go to the West Coast, you're not going to be around. Does your house need repairs before it's rental ready? And do you have the time, energy, and the funds for that? Many people, especially during COVID, they sold their house as is and they weren't going to make any type of repairs. Buyers were doing home inspections, but only for informational purposes anyway. Only. So if the house was in a really bad condition, the buyer was going to, cancel the contract. That's to be take, will withdraw from the contract. So they weren't even expecting the seller to make any repairs, and the sellers were very happy about that. What's the market like in your area? Are there a lot of rental vacancies? That's another thing to look at. Fortunately, in Hampton Roads, we're a military town, and our military are always, if they don't want to stay on the base, or they have ability to be out on their own, they'll usually end up renting, unless they know they're going to be in this position for a while. And what monthly rent could you realistically expect? So this is a quote from C&C Property Management. Explains, at the heart of any rental is the balance between supply and demand. When more tenants are looking for housing than there are available units, rental prices rise. On the other hand, if new construction adds hundreds of apartments or homes in the neighborhood, prices can soften as tenants have more choices. Now, we're actually in Hampton. We're having a lot of new construction coming out about involving rental properties, different developments, which I would rather have developments where people have the option to purchase. It could be a mixed use situation where part of it is rentals, part of it are condos. I'd rather see that, so people have the ability to experience home ownership. So these four items here are the ones that you need to take into effect almost immediately. And then the next question is, are you ready to be a landlord? Are you ready to take midnight calls about clogged toilets or broken air conditioners, chasing down mixed rent payments, covering unexpected repairs, fixing damages between tenants? Are you ready to do that, to get involved with that? And those costs hit when you least expect them. And then have you run the real numbers? There's actually higher insurance premiums. Landlord insurance typically costs about 25% more. Management fees, if you use a property manager, they typically charge around 10% of the rent. Now, just a little side note, if you're using a management company, they will be the ones that are taking those midnight calls. They will go after the missed rent payments. You would actually fund them, maybe have like a $500 funding fee, which they could use for immediate repairs that they could do quickly. I mean, it's something major. Then maybe that's over 500. Let's say there's a broken banister or there's a railing that's down, and that might not be more than 500. But I'm saying bigger cost items. Well, let's say the heating unit went down. Okay, the heat pump went down. That might cost around 5,000. Well, then they would have to request that money from you. So going back to have you run the real numbers? We talked about management fees, routine maintenance and services, advertising fees to find tenants, gaps between tenants. This is a big one, where you cover the mortgage without rental income coming in. So once the tenant leaves, you might have a 1 or 2 month gap where you're not getting, and hopefully not more than that, but where you're not getting any income in because the unit is um, vacant. So now, if you have an outstanding mortgage on that property, you're paying that on your own. And for some people, that's totally manageable. For others, it's much more than they want to take in. So the next step, a conversation with your agent, and again, you could talk to me about that. Um, if uh, if you decide to, I mean, again, I'm in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia. If you have a house that you listed out anywhere outside of Virginia, again, it may be best to speak to that agent who listed your house for them to discover how the rental market is there. You know, is there a need for more rental units on the market? And what's the going rents? Is it going to be enough to pay for your current mortgage on it? All right. Is there enough money? Do you have like a positive income coming in, positive cash flow, that if something goes wrong with the apartment, you have the cost, the money to make those repairs? Because while renting can be a great choice for the right person with the right house, if you are only considering it because your listing didn't get traction, there may be better solutions. And the better solution might be you have to lower the price on that house. Or you might have to make some upgrades to it for it to sell. Again, it's always a case by case situation. You have to ask that listing agent, why do you think it's not selling? What feedback did you get from people who actually show the house? Take a close look at the CMA that hopefully that listing agent made for you. And maybe you did price your house too high. Maybe you priced your house accordingly to a house that was move-in ready, but your house isn't. It doesn't have the upgrades. It has an old-fashioned kitchen, an outdated bathroom. So you have to take all this into consideration. And by the way, pricing a house is not the easiest thing in the world. Some people think it is. It's not. And it all depends on, on the appraiser. Because you might have an appraiser, after, you go into contract, and now the buyer has gotten an appraiser to see if the value of the home is going to be, uh, you know, eligible for the mortgage that you need. And with one house that I listed, I mean, the seller did beautiful upgrades to it. And outside a 1 mile radius of that property, they felt that the price that we wanted for it would sell, but the immediate area, though it wasn't that bad, that price was a little outside of it in the immediate area. And then you have another appraiser who says, "Oh no, that's fine." It's very subjective. It's like being on trial, and you're trying to find out the sentence, and the judge looks at the clock and says, "Oh, all right, we'll do 3 to 5," because it's 3 minutes to 5 or whatever. So again, maybe that's a bad example. I don't know, but it's sometimes it is very subjective. There's those numbers that are grounded, that are objective, right? numbers that are grounded in reality. But the appraiser might have a whole different, one appraiser, one house, uh, we thought, meaning me and the buyer, thought that I'm sorry, that down the block was a 7-Eleven, and that was a beautiful convenience, right? Right? Coming home late from work, you want to pick up some bread and milk, maybe a coffee, and that's great that it's right there. In the cities, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. The 7-Eleven are really they're the bodegas, and a lot of them will stay open 24 hours. And being close to one, it was a great benefit, especially for young professionals who very rarely cook at home. So they'll pick up something to eat, or even just get a coffee. Won't even make coffee in the house. But this one appraiser felt that the house was so close to a 7-Eleven. A lot of times, not no, don't let me say a lot of times, but at times 7-Elevens get robbed. So he saw it as a negative that the house was so close to a 7-Eleven. And a lot of other people, and actually it went with another appraiser, and they said, no, it's fine. I'm cool with that. So pricing a house is not easy, because there's a part of it is just personal emotion to it. It's not always, the price is not always based on hard facts. Let's put it that way. Okay. It's a lot to consider whether or not to go directly into renting. I personally never wanted to be a landlord. I don't want to deal with phone calls in the middle of the night. I don't want to deal with phone calls complaining about the neighbors. I just don't want that. And some people, they're fine with that. It doesn't bother them. So you have to ask yourself, you know, if I'm in the bind and I really need some income coming in, and for some reason the house won't sell and I don't have the money to make the repairs, and if I lower the price, I'm going to have to bring money to the table to pay my off my mortgage and the commissions, then maybe you're stuck. But if you have that option of, I could still survive if it stays on the market longer, and maybe I'll make some other changes. Again, it's always a case by case situation. And you need a trusted advisor who could really, really help you out. And really look out for your interests, because if you're the listing agent and you're talking now, the seller is thinking about renting it, well, you're not going to make a commission now. Or you might make a rental commission, but it's nothing compared to the thousands you can make on selling a home. But if it's best for that seller to do that, it's hard for a listing agent to say, yeah, all right, I guess it's best that you rent it. I'm going to lose my commission. I worked for you for 3 or 4 months, But that's the role of a real estate agent, to be completely fair to your client, right? To look at their best interest. It's sometimes hurts your pocketbook, but you got to do the right thing. All right. That's enough from that. Okay. Now I put together a little, it's like a little summary of, let me go here. I have to pull it up here. And I think this is it. So it's just like a little review. Renting your home when unsold. I'll probably put this on my blog. Research local rental prices, determine if your property can compete in the current market. Calendar calculate rental cost, local laws, understand landlord-tenant regulations in your area to avoid the legal complications and ensure compliance, and preparing your home for renting. Okay, that's a little summary there, and I believe I think I will put that on my blog site as a nice review. Now I also posted a video this week on my blog, which deals with kind of a misconception that investors are buying up all the properties. They're buying more. In fact, personally, I don't like when investors, and they're usually large corporations, buy a lot of single-family homes, because again, it's taking away home ownership to potential buyers, and that's important. That's generational wealth. And again, in most situations, value of real estate usually goes up. I mean, at times it does go down, but in the long run, it usually goes up. So let me just show you this little video on that. Sorry, wrong one. Okay. So, and that's most likely a podcast topic that we'll go over talking about investors. Now, as I said before, remember on my blog site, I have resource materials, and these are free to download, and they're actually updated quarterly. Well, this one is actually, this is the 2025 edition. They'll probably update it soon. Your guide to buying your first home, all right, and tips on that. But also we have the spring edition of things to consider when buying a home, and also that you could download for free. Things to consider when selling your house, the spring 2026 edition. But you download it, you read it, and you still contact me, okay? And I will help you. All right. And they are really very helpful. And again, like I said, they're updated, so they're always fresh. And in a couple of months, I'll most likely have the summer guide to buying and selling your home. All right. Now I'm hearing from my producer Isabella that we have actually a couple of performers in the audience that we need to learn more about. Is that true, Isabella?
Yes, Mr. G. We have a couple of famous celebrities in the audience. Frida and Heinrich Heimlich were circus performers in East Germany prior to the destruction of the Berlin Wall. When one of the stones from the wall hit Heinrich Heimlich in the head, he changed his mind on circus performing, and he and his wife, Frida, became biking enthusiasts. Tonight, in our audience, they will perform some of their most daring bicycle tricks. Hope you enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, Frida and Heinrich Heimlich.
Thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate that. Okay, that's our show for this week. Um, I'm actually doing more short videos and doing the podcast once a month. I might go back to maybe twice a month. I'll see. Uh, and what I'm going to work on as well is to bring in more guest speakers that we could have a discussion, either if it's with a mortgage broker or a closing company or home inspector, and make it more interesting. Well, it's already very interesting what I do, but we're going to go along that. Maybe speak to somebody about the economy of what's going on right now. So that's my plans for the future, what I'm working on, bigger and better things. So in the meantime, always remember uh, the greatest power we have is love, and the greatest gift is each other. And I'll see you next time.